and I will hand over to Phil. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy.
Right, I'll remember to press the mute button, so hopefully you can all hear me. It's great to see you all. Thank you all for your interest in the Little Princess Trust. I'm just going to go onto screen share now as well, so I can hopefully share some slides with you. Just wait for the technology to kick in. Let's get that on full screen. There we go. Can everybody see that? Looks positive. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll tell you a brief history of myself, because I'm actually new to the third sector, the charity sector. I say new, I still very much feel like the new boy. I took post in October 2018, the end of October 2018. I'd worked as a trustee for the charity previous to that for 4.5 years. So I was quite well versed with Little Princess Trust, but it was very interesting coming from the trustee sector and moving across into the employed element of the charity. My background was in commerce. I ran my own office products company, which was based in Hereford, Liverpool and in London for 17 years. I negotiated a sale of that business in 2015 and exited that business in 2017, and then did 12-18 months of business advice working for an organisation in Hereford called Duckett's. So I was working with organisations on predominantly business growth, managing sales teams. So that was my history. So I've taken office at Little Princess Trust, and I was asked today, and I'm thankful for the Chamber to share our story of how we're managing the COVID issues and how we're planning the future. And I think equally, it was how I'm applying some of my commercial business skills to our recovery. So I'm not exactly sure how many of the participants today are from the third sector, from the charity sector, or whether you're from commerce, but I hope it appeals to all. So a little bit about the Little Princess Trust. Our strapline, we give hair and hope to children and young people by providing free wigs to children that have undergone cancer treatment or other conditions and lost their hair. The NHS doesn't make this provision. They provide a voucher system. These wigs can cost up to £2,500 each. There's enough hardship if a child or a young person is diagnosed with cancer, so losing their hair is key to them. So we provide these wigs, and we also fund vital research into childhood cancers. So a little bit more detail about that. This is how we started. Like a lot of charities, we were a memorial charity. This is our little princess herself, Hannah. In 2004, Hannah, our original little princess, was diagnosed with a Wilms tumour. She loved her hair, and losing it was very traumatic. So it was during her treatment that Hannah's parents, Wendy and Simon, searched high and low to find a suitable wig for their daughter. When they found a wig, it had an unbelievably positive effect on Hannah. So the provision of a wig has a massive impact on the lives and the outlook of children when they need it most. So that's our main purpose. Hannah's story resonated with the public. Support came flooding in, as it would, and Wendy and Simon wanted to share their support and turn this experience of Hannah's passing into a force for good for children with cancer. So this is how the charity was started. It's important because as we plan for our survival and how we can thrive from this situation, I think storytelling is really important, whether that be in charity or whether that be in business. So the Little Princess Trust was launched and formed in 2006, and our mission then was to provide free real hair wigs to young people who have lost their own hair due to cancer treatment or other conditions. The history is very relevant again to the future. So that's again why I've got this slide up here. In that first year, we supplied and fitted 36 wigs to children in the UK. We now produce and supply and fit more than 2,000 wigs per year. So you can see over a short period of time, relatively, the progress that's been made. But as I say, it's the history which is really key to how we plan our future. As well as the wigs. So the wigs was how we started. That was our initial purpose. Since then, in 2016, we've been very fortunate that we're able to fund the wigs. We now also fund research into childhood cancer, pediatric cancers, and we are committed to finding kinder, less toxic, less aggressive, and more effective treatments for childhood cancer. And we're outcome orientated, which means that we're looking for treatments that make a difference now, not necessarily in 25 or 40 years' time. So our purpose is very relevant to our future. A little bit about our journey, actually, because it's quite relevant in some of the challenges that we have. If we start off on the left-hand side, as you look at the screen, hair is donated to the Little Princess Trust. We have a staggering amount of hair donated. And again, this was one of the things that helped us plan our future, because we get tens of thousands of hair donations every year. It takes 14 hair donations to make a wig. With that hair donation generally comes fundraising. So this is where our income stream is. Tens of thousands of individuals do this. And of course, we've realized this is very much an asset of our organization. And there was an awful term used in commerce of sweating the asset. But there's an element of analyzing our assets, which has helped us grow into the future and has given us confidence about our future. So hair is donated to the Little Princess Trust. We take that into our main offices here in Hereford. We sort that hair into 16 different colours. Here was another challenge. Our hair is packaged and shipped to our manufacturers. Clearly, the world shut its doors when COVID arrived. Hair is generally made into a wig. It's then air freighted back to the UK, taken back to our premises here in Hereford. We stock those wigs and then we distribute them to a network of salons all across the UK. So, I mean, that's how we operate. Those are the logistical challenges that we have. A lot of those challenges were affected by COVID. We always use this figure, and it's been very instrumental in our recovery. It costs us £550 to cover the cost of making a wig and delivering it to a child. That's a figure that we recently had audited by our accountants. But in sales, and I came from a sales background, it's called anchoring. We needed to know what it cost us to make a wig, because it allowed people to focus on something tangible that they could do to help us with the recovery. So the £550 figure was actually a key figure for a lot of our social media content and our recovery messaging and narrative. So that gives you a little bit of an understanding as to what we do. The current climate is not an easy one for charities. As I said, I'm not sure exactly the demographic here, how many of you are in the charity sector, but if you're in the sector, you'll be very used to these headlines. And if you're in commerce, you're equally aware of the challenges that face you. It's unprecedented. There's no doubt about it. We've seen all sorts of charities reacting differently. They have different challenges, but the sector is in crisis. There's the terminology that's used, and it's hard-hitting narrative, but there's no doubt there are some severe challenges. Now, I have to say that within the sector, we're very lucky. I worked in commerce before, in the commercial world. We did speak to our competitors. I could reach out to somebody else who did the same as I did in a different part of the country, but it was quite challenging to get them to be completely honest with me about the challenges they were faced. What happens in our sector, it's a very close community. It is a community, so there is a lot of sharing of information, sharing of ideas, innovation, and experiences. But I've had to be quite selfish here and quite focused, because my priority is to ensure that we can still achieve our constitutional objectives of providing wigs to children with cancer and other conditions, and also funding research. that one day leads to that day when no child should die of cancer. So that's our focus. And I have a whole load of other considerations with regards to my duty of care, but I had to be very selfish. So I can't save the sector, but I can do my very best to ensure the Little Princess Trust not only survives, but it does thrive. So I think the other thing I learned was to be quite selfish, actually, which is interesting coming from somebody working in the third sector. So these are the challenges that we faced. Equally, some of the challenges that we have is it's a very, very crowded space. There is an awful lot of charities out there at the moment. They all are under severe stress and trauma, and they are coming up with different narratives, messages and content. And it is very, very crowded. You've seen all the appeals, I'm sure, that are on national TV. The big corporate charities have got the ability to do that. It's on radio, it's on media. You know, there's a whole load of routes to market, but it's a very, very crowded space. I think also we're dealing with giving fatigue. I don't have a team of fundraisers. I certainly don't have a team of salespeople or a sales method that I had when I was in a commercial world. So we're appealing to people's better nature and their giving and their kindness. And we are seeing what I class as giving fatigue, is that people actually, their focus is very different at the moment. There's self-preservation, their own personal challenges, their business challenges. And we initially saw an awful lot of this fatigue creeping in. So we've got challenges which are unique. And I think, again, in a business environment, we were constantly looking for the USP, the unique selling point. I now look at it as differentiators. What is different about the Little Princess Trust? How can I be different in this crowded space? And how can we be tangible and get people to actually buy into and franchise into our recovery? One of the challenges we have here, bottom left-hand side of the screen, COVID-19 urgent appeal, NHS charities together. When we went into COVID, 23rd of March, we saw straight away the NHS machine in action, national adverts with the NHS charities together. Absolutely, you know, on the COVID-19 appeal. And clearly, as a society, we wanted to do everything we can as a giving society to help the NHS battle COVID-19. And what we saw was unprecedented attention with typical fundraisers of charities like ours, the Little Princess Trust, and others in the sector, migrating away from us and going to the COVID-19 appeal with the NHS. And we saw the publicity that was generated with Major Tom, etc. But, you know, it raised over £100 million, you know, just in a few weeks, literally. So again, these were unprecedented times. And as I say, our typical loyal supporters that we'd worked with for years, they gravitated away because they wanted to support the NHS as they challenged this challenge that the whole of the country had, this global epidemic. So that was something we had to be very conscious of as well. And, you know, we're not going to go head to head with the NHS, and we weren't going to go head to head equally with the marketing machine that sat behind that was able to get this message out. So we had to be, again, we had to look for a differentiator. I think equally, I sat here feeling that we were navigating our way through uncharted waters. And I think in any organization that can instill fear, and it's fear of the unknown. So there wasn't a book on this to tell us exactly what to do. We had so many challenges, personal challenges, you know, and these were our challenges as well. It wasn't just society as a whole, commerce, you know, our typical fundraisers that have migrated away. This was the absolute unknown, and there was an element of fear in what we would do about it, but there's also an element of fear equally we knew for our supporters. So again, it was trying to understand how we could reach out to to get the right message out there. Other challenges that we have, we're high on ethics and values, and rightly so. As a charitable organisation, we're dealing with fundraisers' income, and we've got to make sure we're spending that money properly and correctly. So we have legislation, the fundraising regulator. We have to adhere to those standards at all times. It's not an option. So we can be creative, but it has to be within the template of the fundraising regulator at all times, and equally the Charities Commission. Behind there, I have a board of trustees who are responsible for governance. So they're continually poking me and ensuring that whatever we came up with sat firmly within the template of all of the governance that we adhere to. So this gives us another challenge. If you're in commerce, you do have the ability to be more of a maverick when you're looking for your differentiators and your storytelling and your innovation. So there's an element of it's not quite as easy in the third sector. Well, certainly that was my experience. So those are the challenges of lockdown, but what did it actually mean for us and what did it mean for the sector? So the financial impact was the ultimate measurement. Again, whether you're in charity or whether you're in commerce, that's the one that we all look at. So you can measure as much activity as you like and all your KPIs, but the ultimate measurement is financial. Of course, in our sector, our ultimate measurement is our purpose, is our constitutional objectives. That's what we set about doing. But to enable us to achieve those, my first measurement had to be the financial impact. So bottom left-hand screen, that's the figure. That was the exact figure. The first full measurement we were able to have in front of us was April, and we had a 75% decline in income. The sector as a whole, there was a lot of numbers thrown around. I speak a lot with organisations like Macmillan, Teenage Cancer Trust, Click Sargent, some of the big cancer charities. They were all using these type of figures, 60%, 70%. We knew it was going to happen. We measured it, and it was 75% contraction. The sector as a whole, what does that mean? Well, here's a stat which is pretty hot off the press, that 1 in 10 UK charities facing bankruptcy this year. And this is obviously a direct impact of COVID and the financial impact that that has on us. So our immediate challenge, I talked about our constitutional objectives. We have to keep going. Children still had cancer, so we had a key service to deliver. They were still losing their hair, and we still wanted to be there for the research community to ensure that research didn't halt either. I'm sure the narrative that you've seen on some of the national adverts now with some of the big cancer charities, cancer didn't stop for COVID. So we were very, very mindful of that. So we had to keep on delivering. So we had to be innovative. So we had to seek new premises in the early days. Bottom right-hand corner, you can see a brand new premises which we took, which allowed us to operate in a COVID-secure environment to ensure that we could still manage hair donations coming in. Now, typically, prior to COVID, as an organisation, we used to take 4 mailbags every day of post. We actually switched that off, and we asked our supporters. We thought it was the right thing to do to not send. So we stopped the post coming in, but we were still getting a certain amount, and we still had to manage it. We had to manage it in a secure way, so we had to be innovative. So we had new spaces, and we followed government guidelines. And on the left-hand side of the screen, we have to be innovative here as well. How do you provide a wig when you can't get in front of somebody? So we created a virtual wig fitting scenario. So currently we work with about 58 wig fitters across the UK in various salons. We had to narrow that down to 3. We've got our own employed wig fitter, and Nicola here on the picture is one of our third-party wig fitters who's got her own salon. And we developed a way in which we could allow a young person, a child, to choose their wig on screen. We would then send that wig to our wig fitter, who would place it on a mannequin, and they would have a 2-way virtual Teams meeting or Zoom meeting where the recipient of the wig would ask the stylist to style the wig for them on a mannequin. So we had a virtual wig fitting. Once that was done, that wig would be posted to the recipient. So we were able to continually provide our service. And this was key again to our survival, because we were able to maintain virtually the same numbers of wig provision through COVID that we did prior to COVID. This was important because this was key information, again, that formed part of our narrative as we now plan our survival. So our priority initially was to continue to operate. So what could we do to recover in such unprecedented times? As we witnessed our immediate decline in income, we knew that doing nothing was not an option. That's an obvious statement, and I fully appreciate you can sit there and have that thought. But equally, everybody reacts differently in times of challenge. And what we didn't want to do was to sit back. Some of the other content on this slide is, should we furlough staff? Should we launch an appeal? That's pulling everything in and just being extremely cautious and locking down and shutting up. And that had to be a consideration for us. Was that in the best interest of the charity to take cost out of the organisation? Or was it in the best interest of the charity to strive forward and to be positive about our future, and to ensure that what resource we do have, I was able to engage that resource in planning and activity and purpose to ensure that we came through this and were still able to operate at the level we are and to achieve our constitutional objectives. So at this point was engagement. It was gathering information, as much information as I possibly could, to try and put a strategy and a plan together for the future. I would lobby for opinions, and that would come from other chief execs. I mentioned a few that I was able to reach out to. I reached out to bodies within our organisation, and whether you're in commerce or in charity, there are bodies that we can reach out to get good, valuable information. Is it evidence-based, which is what we're all looking for? We're looking for that book that tells us what to do and what will work. It doesn't really exist, but we're looking for as much evidence as we can possibly get. And then as leaders, charity leaders, business leaders, we have to start making our decisions. And one of the key decisions that I did make was that we wouldn't furlough staff, and I had complete support from my board on this, and that we wouldn't launch an appeal. We wouldn't go to appeal. And that was one of the differentiators which I believe made a difference for our organisation. What I did is I looked back. So when we were looking for as much evidence as I could possibly get, I looked back. So it was the history that helped. And it was actually a conversation with this young lady here. Now, we're very fortunate in our organisation that we have somebody that continually motivates everybody that she comes into contact with. So this is Wendy, who was mother of Hannah. She's an extremely inspirational individual who inspires us all. And she literally does inspire everybody that she ever comes into contact with. But this helps, and this helped us to formulate our plan for the future. Because it was a conversation I had with Wendy when she was telling me about how the charity had performed through the credit crunch of 2007, 2008. I'd add 2009 onto that as well. And she advised me and dug out all the stats to tell me very clearly, with evidence, that during that credit crunch, during that recession, the Little Princess Trust grew year on year. And we grew year on year at that time with that very simple message of providing wigs and hair to children with cancer who'd had hair, was suffering with hair loss. So it was that storytelling again, which really inspired me and motivated me to think about, what our message would be as we came through COVID. So we focused on our original narrative, and we focused on that message and the marketing of helping children with cancer. So we do help children with cancer. That's our primary reason. But we do also have a caveat to that, that we also provide our services to children, young people who have lost their hair for other conditions. But at this particular moment in time, I believe that our message was stronger with our original message that we came through the recession of 2007 with providing wigs for children with cancer. So that helped me with the narrative, and it also gave me confidence that we could come through this. So our communication, once we've decided exactly what we're going to do, communication was key. I think I said to you earlier on, we haven't got a single paid fundraiser here. We have 21 members of staff. 12 of those are full-time. As a chief exec, I can't go into a sales office and start motivating a team of salespeople to go and do something about our income. I can't go to a team of fundraisers and ask them to plan their next event, because events aren't happening. I can't go to a team of fundraisers and start to challenge them with income generation, because in the world of Little Princess Trust, we don't have them. So we looked at our assets again, and I explained before that it was really important that we understand what our assets are, and using that term, which I don't particularly like, but how can we sweat our assets? So we recognized that, of course, our supporters, our loyal supporters, are our main asset. They really are. And we had tens of thousands of them. So we had to engage. So we were on social media. We were very prevalent and prolific on social media, with some constant messaging, with typical ranging of tiered messaging. So we were selling the personality and promoting the personality of the charity. But we were also promoting the wigs, we were promoting research, we were promoting the sector as a whole. There was a lot of sharing going on. So the messaging was full of various different tiers. But we agreed that through COVID, we would focus absolutely on the provision of wigs and hair, our core selling point, if you like, our core feature. So on the social media platforms, we agreed that we would increase our social media presence threefold. So, and we would also concentrate only on tier 1 messaging. So we looked at our resource internally, which is another asset of our organization, and a couple of the staff that might have been a little bit quieter, we moved them across into social media so we could be more responsive and quicker to any posts and any feedback on posts, so we could be seen to be proactive and forward thinking on all the social media platforms. Our corporate engagement would need to be up a notch. We get some great support from some corporates, but we had to reach out. And we had to understand who was trading and who wasn't. So we had to build up some DNA pretty quickly as who was out there, who was very active on social media. Would they want a campaign to run alongside us? And we've had some major wins here. During COVID, we secured John Frieda International Organization, and they are launching this week Little Princess Trust campaign. So campaigns were really important, and we reached out again to all of our corporates to see if we could get people to support us. And you can see here there's a campaign on Let It Grow. We looked at the asset, we looked at the landscape, and we understood that in COVID people's hair was growing. People were having bad hair days, and we took that to our advantage. So we jumped on that quickly. So we were opportunity driven, and we had to be innovative. And then on the far right hand side, again, just on the communication theme, we used to do a quarterly newsletter, and during COVID we're just about to launch our 4th newsletter. So in 3 months it'll be our 4th. There's a fine balance between overcooking this, sending out too much information, but we've got a lot of good stories to tell, and those stories now are evidence-based about what we've been doing during COVID. So we increased our communication throughout the entire organization. The results of our increase in communication and our increase in activity brought success. I've always been a big believer that activity brings success. That's why we didn't sit tight. That's why we didn't furlough. We generated more activity than we ever have before. Last week we had a viral post posted by Good Morning America, and it's gone over 200,000 now. And that's profile for a charity that we need that profile, because profile does generate income. We've been in the Sun, the Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph, local press, local radio, national radio, Chris Evans' Virgin Radio. Both Wendy and myself have done various interviews on BBC regional radio. So we've done Radio Sussex, West Midlands, Hereford and Worcester. So our profile has never been as great, and that came through the activity that we generated. So we can measure it, and can we manage it? So every single activity, we have KPIs, key performance indicators, on all those key elements, but we're also now measuring our activity. So we measure the amount of emails we send out, the amount of phone calls we get. We look at the analytics and make sure we measure that as well, and we record it so we can constantly see whether we are benefiting from the fruits of our labour, the effort we're putting in, what's working and what isn't. So we have to be able to measure it. This is a particular author which I read his books, this book particularly. Every time I've ever been in sales, I have bought this book and given it to every single person I've employed. It's a fantastic book that just simply says, just because we've always done it that way, it doesn't make it right. Start with why, challenge. And again, this is a book equally for leaders. Great leaders inspire everyone to take action by asking the question why. And we've done that all through the COVID period. We keep on prodding. Why are we doing this? What are the results? Where's the evidence? So we review it and we go again. We review it and we go again. But everybody now is in this mentality, all of my staff, with asking this question constantly: why do we do it? Is it right to do it? So we have to review. So the internal communication has also got to be vital. It's all well and good me sitting here in my office full of ideas and enthusiasm and energy, but I've got to be absolutely sure that every single member of our staff and my staff here are equally inspired, and they get it, they get the message. But we've got to be there for them in these challenging times to offer the support and guidance. But I've got to be sure that they're all franchised into these strategies of more to more. Our supporter services team have been phenomenal during this period in making sure that we convert, we use that word a lot now, that we get a good inquiry, somebody wants to support us, but we have to work harder and harder and harder to convert them, to make sure they do something for our great charity. And that again has to be the same in business, that we have to work harder than ever to get our supporters to franchise into us, and our customers to franchise into us and to stay with us and to create that loyalty. But the staff are absolutely key. All the analogies that you've ever heard in life of we're only as good as our weakest link. Well, this is absolutely true, but I've got a wonderful team of people here that are constantly understanding what we're wanting to achieve, how important it is, that it is a priority, and they're actively doing it and carrying out our strategy. Change management, a lot of you may be familiar with Kubler-Ross and the change curve. So we created this in the early days. I've always used this in coaching staff and coaching sales staff. But it was really important that we understood the changes we were going to go through. We did have to adapt to change. And through all of the change, we were dealing with COVID. So it wasn't just how do we survive and how do we thrive and how do we achieve all our goals. We needed to understand all of the psychological challenges that we were going to have as individuals as well. And I think this is absolutely key. So this worked tremendously well. This was shared with all of our staff and all of the management. And we talk about it on a regular basis about where we're at. And we see the danger spots, on the Kubler-Ross. As you get to the bottom of the change curve, we can deal with anger and depression, negativity, hostility, disillusioned about the future. So I've got to keep everybody focused on the Mecca of moving forward to achieve our goals. But we also need to understand what those goals are, and we have to share them on a regular basis. So this is irrelevant as to whether it's charity or business. The Kubler-Ross change curve is key to bringing people on this journey. So what was our strategy? So yeah, this doesn't look terribly glamorous, but this is pretty much what we got focused on. So phase one was very much about individual giving. That's where our income came from. So it was analysing and understanding where our income came from. Our demographic tells us that our income comes from young individuals who are probably of a school age. That's where we inspire people and motivate people and mobilise people to fundraise for us through haircuts. So we needed to understand that, but that was going to be our phase one. We were going to focus very much on seeing whether we could get our individual givers back on track. So our main social media content would focus on children and young people who have suffered hair loss because of cancer treatment and the provision of wigs. So that's the information I got by listening to Wendy and looking back at our history. And that was key to let our history dictate our future. There would be no appeal. And there would be no appeal because we had decided that the tone of our content and our narrative would be positive and upbeat. And we believed that would help us stand out in this crowded environment. That we would constantly be positive with everything we put out, everything. We would be immediate and purposeful in all of our actions. Now, we should be anyway, whether we're in COVID or not. But this was something I had to reiterate to everybody, was the immediacy of what we had to do. And that immediacy is absolutely, it's in every one of our members of staff. We're all committed to the future, and we're all looking to innovate and be purposeful in all of our actions. We needed to increase our communication to unprecedented levels. This was a situation we'd never been in before. So we had to react. So our communication, our newsletters, our reaching out to business, our social media had to be at unprecedented levels. And we had to be open-minded about new possibilities. And that we are. And that's not just me, it's every member of staff. This morning, I had an email before 8 o'clock from a part-time member of staff who works 2 days a week for us. And she'd emailed me with a really great idea on fundraising. And that's what we get. People are franchised in, our staff are franchised in, and our supporters are franchised in. So we needed to engage with all income channels and understand them. And we needed to ensure, of course, that our supporters and our staff are franchised in and rewarded where possible. And that was something, again, where we felt we could just give something back, and that would help us, and that would set us aside and give us that unique point we were looking for. Every one of our supporters at the moment, we've sent them a t-shirt with Little Princess Trust emblazoned on the front. Those t-shirts cost us £2.50. Those supporters are raising £400, £500, £600, £1,000 for us every time. So to give them something back, not just the purpose and the self-esteem of doing something good, and good is good, but to be able to give them something back, help them to franchise in. So as soon as we sent them a t-shirt, we asked them to put it on social media, and to post their stories and to share their stories. So this is the net promoter scheme. So again, which we used in business. So we're asking our clients, our supporters, to promote our organization by way of testimonial, storytelling, or simply branding. So that's worked phenomenally well for us. And we would celebrate success. And any organization, I would encourage everybody to ensure that they celebrate success. And at the moment, they're baby steps, but they have to be celebrated. We have to understand what's working, and when it works, and when we can share that information, celebrate it. And that, we believe, was really important. So that was the bones of our initial strategy. Phase two of the strategy was when we could start to understand what the KPIs were telling us. We could start to bring in some tier 2 content on social media, more narrative about research. We would use campaigns such as the Grow It campaign, because we would listen and watch what was happening and we would react to it. We would encourage advocacy. So we would look at our supporters and our many corporate contacts that we've got and encourage them to support us. We would look for testimonials wherever we could get them. And some of those would be testimonials that came from the COVID period, because that's a very strong story to tell about what we're doing whilst we're under pressure. We would look at a business-to-business environment and look to ensure we can encourage that channel to give us greater results again. And we would concentrate on conversion. If we had somebody who was showing interest in supporting our charity, we made sure that we left no stone unturned. We did everything we can to get them to franchise in. And we would look at those corporates through B2B, and we would look at them as a net promoter. Key performance indicators, absolutely key for any organization. And again, I'm sure I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but we had to measure everything. We had to be sure we had really good key performance indicators. A lot of these were ones we've used before, but my pack gets bigger and bigger and bigger because we're measuring everything during the COVID period, because we're now measuring activity as well as and we're looking at analytics of everything we possibly can. So we're using technology to support us, and we're using key information. And without that information, I don't know how I can make decisions. I have to have tangible information in front of me. So if you can measure it, then you can manage it. I told you in April we were down 75%. That was pretty shocking. It was expected, but if I'm honest, I didn't expect it to be that great. It's a sort of bittersweet statement when I say I can see some progress, because unfortunately we're measuring decline here. but nevertheless, it's a positive. As you can see, in May we were down by 64%, and June, and with this will be very, very accurate. It was a forecast as of yesterday, but we will be 50% down in June, and we're celebrating that. We are celebrating it because it's progress. And it's tangible progress that we're measuring, and we can see it. And the ultimate measurement to allow us to carry out our constitutional objective is financial. So that is the main measurement, but it's improving, and we believe it will continue to improve. Every KPI that we measure, every single one is showing growth, and some of them are phenomenal. One of the slides that was there on the previous slide was just giving pages, fundraising pages. And we have seen phenomenal growth in fundraising pages being opened. So we won't see the cash benefit of that for some months to come, but we're seeing significant income possibilities now being increased. We've seen significant opportunities with our reaching out to corporates with the likes of John Frieda. So we've had the confidence to reach out, and we've had the content and the ability to create good dialogue and a compelling reason why these organizations should support us. Every KPI is now showing growth, excluding fundraising packs. We send out a manual fundraising pack, and that has dropped off a cliff, much the same as income. And we haven't seen much of a recovery up until the last couple of days. But I understand why, and that's key, is to understand this information. Most of our supporters, as I said to you earlier, are on the playgrounds of England and Wales. Therefore, then the children aren't at school. So that's why the fundraising packs aren't being requested. Fundraising packs are requested by businesses because they choose us as a charity of the year. Businesses are currently sat at home, so it's not on their agenda. So we've got to understand that, but then we've got to do something about it. So we've got to provoke and promote good dialogue so we can engage and we can try and affect this information. And again, we're now starting to see some growth just in the last couple of days on fundraising packs. So during COVID, we've learned an awful lot about ourselves. We've come up with a strategy that we believe in. We're positive, we're upbeat, and we believe in the future. We believe that this isn't just about survival, it's about thriving. We've been innovative working from home. We've obviously made our workplace secure. As I look out of my office here, I can see red tape down the corridors and bollards and signs everywhere. Never expected to see that, but we are completely secure, COVID secure. We've produced new fundraising packs, which will be more beneficial to us, will give a greater opportunity to convert more of our potential fundraisers into fundraisers. We've got new themes, new marketing themes. We've developed 2 new CRM systems, which give us greater data, which allows us to be better prepared for the future. We've created more policy, better process and procedures. I'm a big believer in procedures, and procedures make life easier. They make us, we're better organized, we're better structured. And we can manage our organisation in a far more efficient way when we've got good procedures. So we did spend a lot of time on ensuring our policy documents were right, making sure we had good process, making sure we had good procedure, and making sure, again, our staff understood them. But this has helped us come out of COVID in a better place. When we eventually went into COVID, I made it clear to our staff that we would go in together and we would come out together. But I also promised them we would come out in a better place. And that's the belief that we've had, that we've engaged, we've got better process, we've spoken to all of our members of staff, we've lobbied our supporters, and we've come out better than we went in. So we've made really, really good use of our time, as well as obviously securing the future of our organisation. So stay positive, work hard, make it happen. I'd have had this on my wall, whether I'd have been in business or whether I'm in charity. But I genuinely believe that we had to stay positive, and we clearly had to work hard. And I just believe that, you know, one of my little sayings in life is we need doers, not don'ters. And we just need to find reasons to say yes. We just need to innovate. We need to be positive. There are challenges beyond our comprehension that we never thought we'd have to address. But we can't put the lights off and do nothing. We have to do something about it. And that was very much my mentality. I am an optimistic individual, and I've often been described as dangerously optimistic, which is why I have to have good operational people around me to calm me down sometimes. But I am a big believer in we can make it happen if we put our minds to it. And I do genuinely believe that every cloud can have a silver lining. And there we go. In the words of Simon Sinek, working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. I'm very lucky. I absolutely believe I've got the best job in the world. I'm motivated every day. I'm inspired every day by the people I meet. You can't help but be inspired when you meet somebody who's challenged with cancer and you see how they react to it and the strength they get. And it makes us want to work harder. You can't help but be inspired when I work with someone like Wendy, our founder, who literally inspires everybody she ever meets. And I'm massively passionate about what I do, but I genuinely believe equally that passion doesn't pay the bills. It's good activity that pays the bills. So we have to turn this passion into really good, positive actions. So first of all, we've got to believe in what we do. Otherwise, if we don't care about it, it's stressful. But if we believe in what we do, our storytelling comes across in a far more compelling way. We have a far better opportunity for results. Now, my thank you slide is a little girl called Flo. And Flo has got cancer. And this was her when she received her wig. And it sounds like such an innocuous, incidental gift to give somebody hair. But what this does for our wig recipients is quite astonishing, because it gives them their identity back. It gives them their confidence. And it's often been said as well, it just gives them the spirit to fight their illness. And little Flo appears on a lot of our marketing at the moment. And it's reasons like this which clearly give me the ability to be so motivated about getting up in the morning and coming to work. So thank you, everybody. That was my presentation. I hope there was something in there that might be of use or of interest. But I think we can do some questions now.
Perfect. Well, I'd just like to say on behalf of the Chamber, thank you so much, Phil, for sharing your story. It looks like you've got a great strategy in place, and I hope everyone found that very useful. We haven't actually received any questions, so if anyone does have one, if I could encourage you to put that in the chat box in the next sort of 2 minutes, or if it is easier, please just unmute yourself and ask it. That's fine as well. But I'm just going to quickly ask Phil to stop sharing his screen. And then, because it's our first charity forum, I wondered if it would be okay to take a quick picture so I can put it on social media. So if you don't want to be in the picture, please just turn your camera off. But I'm gonna put it on our LinkedIn if that's okay. Bear with me. I could have smiley faces as well. Wonderful, thank you. We have actually received a question in the meantime, so thank you, Harriet. And it's for Phil, obviously. You mentioned that you don't have an employed fundraiser. Is there a reason for that?
Okay, so we don't have an employed fundraiser because over the years, as we've increased in both income volume and our ability to provide our frontline service, we've never had a need for one. There was the directors, the trustees of the charity also there was some nervousness about being seen to be corporate. So there is a brief from the trustees that we didn't want to have a team of fundraisers, but I think it's an inherited situation, which at the moment does work. Now, of course, we do fundraise. We do have events. And we also have one of our members of staff works in both procurement, but also corporate social responsibility and engaging with the corporate world. So you could argue that is a paid fundraiser or part of that. But the point we made and the point I was making during the presentation is I haven't got a team of fundraisers sat in the office next door to me that I can go and challenge with increasing our income. So it's a default position. We haven't had to have a team of fundraisers. Whether that'll be the case for the future is to be seen, but at the moment there are no immediate plans for fundraisers. One thing we did have a budget for, even though that's on hold now, we were going to have a school liaison officer. Having realised that a lot of our income comes from youngsters themselves, we felt it would be a really positive move to send the Little Princess Trust into school assemblies up and down the country and liaising with the education sector LEAs throughout the country. So that was something we were going to do. You could argue again that is fundraising, but actually we saw that as education. But we know on the back of high profile comes income.
Perfect, thanks, Phil. We've got another question. So how would you suggest as business people could help?
As business people, yeah, I mean the net promoter scheme, advocacy, ambassadors. When businesses feel that it's good for them to engage with the charity, it works both ways. It genuinely does, and I know this from my time in business, that people like good. If you're in business, people want to trust you. It's a really strong message to put out, and if you can prove that you have a relationship with a charity, whether it be Little Princess Trust or other charities, it's a really strong message. When you do it properly and you engage properly, run campaigns together, do it for periods in time, but genuinely be seen to be supporting and working with a charity. And it'll work both ways. We have corporate supporters. We visit them. We address their staff. We do work really hard to ensure that if we do get support, we do ensure that our levels of appreciation are very, very evident. And we work as well. Our social media for us, and it'll be the same for a lot of other charities, it's one of our greatest assets. We have a reach of over 500,000. Now that's a real tangible asset for a business to jump on the back of. So you can do good by supporting a charity, and we can show you how you can do good, tangibly, evidence-based do good, but you can share in the benefits that we can give you as well, because you can piggyback our social media reach.
Perfect. Thanks, Phil. I think that's it in terms of questions. Just before the session ends, I'd just like to go through which webinars are happening this week. So tomorrow, 10 to 11, we've got our Women's Business Forum. Thursday, 12 till 1, we've got our lunchtime networking. And Thursday, 3 till 4, we've got our flexible working webinar. They're all free for members and non-members to join if you'd like to book on any of those, or to keep updated with our webinars. You can join our e-shot, just let me know. I think that brings us to the end. Tricia, have you got your hand up? do you want to unmute yourself?
Sorry, I just have a question. I'm just not very good at multitasking and typing everything all at the same time. So thank you, Phil, for a great presentation and some insights that were really helpful.
Thank you.
You can never be too optimistic, by the way. Impossible. I was really interested that you don't have paid fundraisers, but I understand that if you've got a culture that everybody in effect is a fundraiser who's representing your organisation, like I can see that that would work. But I'd be interested to know if you've ever looked at what the impact would be on the charity if you did have a paid professional fundraiser.
Yeah, there is absolutely no doubt that it would have a positive effect on income. Absolutely no doubt. Up until COVID, we were 20% in growth on income, which is pretty unprecedented again within the sector, which is pretty much standing still in most cases. So what we were doing very well. So it was a different source of income. It was a different strategy internally. It was one that suited us because of our heritage and our history. So with a 20% income increase, we didn't need to go and test as to whether having a paid fundraiser was a requirement. That's not to say it wouldn't be on the agenda in the future at all, Tricia, because again, we say we're open-minded and we're opportunity-driven. So I don't think it would be seen as a negative if the Little Princess Trust employed a fundraiser. But I do believe that we don't want to be a corporate type organisation with big teams of fundraisers.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Phil, for sharing your presentation today, and thank you all for joining. And that brings us to the end. Some lovely comments in the chat box there. I've just had one asking if the presentation will be shared. Phil, that's up to you. I'm happy to share it if you are.
No, it's fine. Absolutely fine.
Yeah. Okay.
And equally, if anybody wanted to get in contact with me directly, I'd be very, very happy to speak to anybody, meet with anybody when we can, or share any information that might be of use. So.
Perfect. Well, I will put your contact details on our follow-up email as well. But thank you all for joining. I hope you found that useful, and I hope you have a lovely day. Take care all. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.